The train stopped with a screech, jolting me awake. I blinked at the small station sign barely visible in the twilight. Ravenwood, it read, letters faded with age. I hadn't planned to get off here, but fate doesn't always wait for plans. I was supposed to be heading to a corporate retreat in the city beyond the hills. But a storm had cut the tracks, and the station master announced this was as far as anyone could go until morning. The other passengers grumbled, searching for inns or rides back home. But something about the stillness of this forgotten place pulled me in, so, suitcase in hand, I stepped off onto the empty platform. The air was heavy with rain, the scent of pine and earth mingling with the faint smoke of chimneys. The village seemed caught in another time, stone cottages, narrow lanes, and a silence that felt both peaceful and unsettling. I was the director of a multinational company, used to skyscrapers, boardrooms, and the hum of city life. Here, everything was stripped down to simplicity, and I was alone, or so I thought. As I made my way through the dimly lit streets, a voice called out, "Lost, ma'am." I turned, startled. A man stood beneath a flickering lantern, dressed in a soldier's uniform, not the polished dress of parades, but worn, rugged fatigues that carried the weight of real battles. His posture was straight, his gaze steady. He looked out of place and yet completely at home in this quiet village. "I suppose I am," I admitted, managing a smile. The storm stopped my train. He studied me for a moment, then stepped forward. "The inn's full. Tonight, I heard them turning people away, but my aunt has a spare room. It isn't much, but it's dry and warm." I hesitated. Trusting strangers wasn't in my nature. But there was something about him, an unshakable calm, a sincerity that disarmed me. Against my usual instincts, I nodded. "Thank you, that would be very kind." His name was Daniel. He had returned to Ravenwood after years of service abroad, carrying scars that weren't visible but lived in his silence. As we walked, he told me little about himself, yet his presence filled the emptiness of the streets. The house was modest, his aunt welcoming me with a warmth I hadn't expected. Over dinner, I listened to the stories of the village, the traditions, the hardships, the way time seemed to pause here while the rest of the world raced ahead. Daniel spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. That night, as I lay awake in the small guest room, I couldn't shake the image of him standing beneath that lantern, his eyes steady, his voice calm. He had appeared in the very moment I needed someone, and the thought unsettled me in ways I couldn't explain. The storm worsened, and what was meant to be a single night stretched into days. Roads were flooded, trains delayed, and Ravenwood became my reluctant refuge. Daniel became my guide, showing me paths through the woods, introducing me to villagers who looked at me with curiosity but no malice. Slowly, I began to see the cracks in his armor, the way his hands sometimes trembled when thunder rolled, the faraway look in his eyes when he thought no one noticed. He carried his past like a shadow, and though he tried to hide it, I could feel the weight of it pressing between us. One evening, as we stood by the river swollen with rain, I asked softly, "Do you ever regret coming back here?" His jaw tightened. "Sometimes, but the city, the noise, the crowds, it makes the silence inside me louder. Here, at least, I can breathe." I wanted to reach out, to tell him I understood, but I held back. After all, I was only a stranger passing through, bound for another world entirely. And yet, every day, I found myself drawn closer. The villagers began to notice. Whispers followed us as we walked, glances exchanged behind hands. A company director from the city and a soldier scarred by war, it was an unlikely pairing. A story too strange for their quiet lives. Conflict brewed inside me. I had a life waiting for me beyond the hills, responsibilities I couldn't abandon, and he was tied to this forgotten village, anchored by his past and his need for peace. Love, if that's what this was, had no place here. But love doesn't wait for perfect circumstances. One night, the power went out as the storm raged harder than ever. Daniel lit a lantern, the glow casting shadows across his face. We sat in silence, listening to the wind batter the windows. Finally, he spoke. "You'll leave when the road's clear," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I admitted, my voice heavy. "I have to." He nodded, his expression unreadable. But in his eyes, I saw the same battle tearing me apart, the fight between duty and desire, between the safety of routine and the risk of something real. The suspense of the storm mirrored the storm within us. Each passing day made leaving harder, and yet, staying felt impossible. When the roads finally opened, the villagers celebrated. Life would return to normal. For me, it meant goodbye. On the morning of my departure, I found Daniel waiting by the station. The sky was still gray, the ground muddy, but the train was coming. I searched for words, something to hold on to, but nothing seemed enough. "Thank you," I whispered, echoing the words I had spoken the night we met. He gave a small smile, the kind that carried both pain and hope. "You don't owe me thanks. Just remember Ravenwood." The train arrived, steam billowing, a reminder that the world beyond was still moving. I stepped on board, my chest aching with the weight of everything unspoken. As the train pulled away, I looked back. Daniel stood beneath the same lantern where I had first seen him, the light flickering in the mist. Our eyes met one last time before the distance swallowed him, and though I left the forgotten village behind, I carried it with me the silence, the storm, and the soldier who had reminded me that love can appear in the most unexpected places. Even when it seems impossible to hold on to. Sometimes, love isn't about staying forever. Sometimes, it's about the moment it changes you irrevocably. In a village the world has forgotten, but your heart never will.